What's up, everybody? It's time once again for another exciting episode. You can hear it in my voice. Dropkicks and Joysticks. I always almost stumble on dropkicks. I don't know why I have such a hard time saying that word when I know I'm going to say joysticks after it. I can say dropkicks by itself, no problem. But if the next word after it is joysticks, for some reason my brain wants to mess with me. I don't know why that is. But anyway, it is I, Bloody Bill Vox, coming at you once again. What is this, episode 8? Yeah, this is like episode 8. We're getting close to 10. If I get to, I don't know, I think 12 or 13, it'll be the longest podcast I've ever done. But welcome back, everybody. It's Wednesday, August 23rd as I record this episode. This will drop on Monday, August 28th. And as I record, we're heading into the ever historic AEW All-In pay-per-view Sunday, August 27th. So as this episode drops, it will have just happened the day before. And it's an exciting time. The card's a little shaky. Heading into it, it was a lot of multi-people matches. Apparently there are going to be some changes made, so I'm not going to talk about the card itself. I mean, the big money match is MJF and Adam Cole. And, at this point, it will have played out already. But as I record it, it's, kind of a curious situation. They were going to be on the pre-show in a tag team title match for the Ring of Honor belts. And then they were going to be in the main event for the AEW World Championship. And, of course, somebody begged the question, what happens if these guys were to be injured in that opener? What happens to the main event? I personally not a big fan of that booking, but we'll see how it all played out. Of course, again, the beauty of recording in advance is sometimes you get to talk in semi-retrospect. And, as this episode drops, we will see how it all played out. WWE is heading towards Payback. That is, as this episode drops, this coming Saturday. And then, of course, All Out is this coming Sunday. So it's a busy time in the pay-per-view world. I admit I have not watched a whole lot of wrestling recently, a lot of current stuff. I know the Bloodline angle has kind of cooled off a little bit. As I record this, John Moxley's going viral for hitting a blunt in some rap artist's Instagram video or something of that sort. Recently, we had Lacey Evans leave WWE. We had Tyrus talking about beating up his kids if they have pronouns to share. It's, Devin Nicholson, the man known as Hannibal, finally got sued for stabbing a dude in the head. That guy's a train wreck and a half. I personally can never bring myself to give him an ounce of attention. And that was even before he stabbed a referee in the head. He always just seemed like a real self-serving individual, and I just couldn't play into that. It was like, he brought these people up to work with him, but then he almost, I don't know, something seemed off about it. That's about as much as I'll say, and I don't want to give him a ton of time. But yeah, wrestling is in a good place right now overall. As I sit here and record this, and as we head into these various events, I think it will be a sign of how strong every brand is. Of course, I'm curious how All Out will shape for AEW coming out of All In. There's 7 days between the two, and as I sit here, I think we've got 2, maybe 3 matches announced for that pay-per-view, none of which are a big reason to shell out another $50. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Then on a video game note, WrestleQuest, there we are, dropped on various platforms just yesterday as I sit here and record this. I opted to hold off on it because I was put off on the $30 price point. I wasn't expecting that. I thought it would be a $20 game for some reason. And then the recent kind of dormant state of the AEW Fight Forever game after spending $72 on that was a big time letdown. Right before I sat down to record this episode, I started seeing some rumors that Keith Lee might be on his way out of AEW. I don't know how true, false, or otherwise, so, take that with a grain of salt, and by the time this drops, it may have already been refuted or confirmed. But he was supposed to be a DLC in the game, so that would be interesting if he leaves the company before his DLC was able to drop. That would be interesting for sure. And then on the AEW Fight Forever front, the Stadium Stampede mode, as this episode drops, should be live. Hopefully bug-free, hopefully working well, hopefully bringing some sort of replay value to that game, because it sure doesn't exist within the core. And there's only so many times I think one could play online anyway. But at least with Stadium Stampede, it seems like there'd be a lot of different options for you to have a lot of fun. In fact, in the teaser video, I saw horses, I saw shovels, I saw explosives, I saw people doing pile drivers into rows of stadium seats. So it looks like it will have some sort of extended replay value to it. And then I wonder if you'll be able to do things like, private matches with friends online, like, maybe a group of 5 or 6 of you just going after, I think it's 30, so it would be, say 24 computer players, and then the 6 of you brawl to see who the last one standing is, or however that plays out. I don't know. I haven't really looked into what the mode entails. I just know that I'll give it a shot. I'll have open eyes, open ears, open arms, hoping for the best, and we'll see how it goes from there. But since I haven't watched a lot of wrestling recently, not a whole lot to talk about. If you want to hear me talk about some of those other stories that I was discussing, not so much the Tyrus story or anything like that, because that's a little more recent, or even the John Moxley or Keith Lee, but Lacey Evans, or Edge's final WWE match under the current contract, SummerSlam, or not SummerSlam, AEW, WWE ticket sales, that sort of thing. The most recent The Week in Wrestling review, as part of my weekend streams on Twitch. You can go ahead and listen to it there. In fact, it's the only thing that I was able to do. It was recorded on Sunday, August 21st, and it references Lacey Evans and Edge and WrestleMania 40 in the title. But anyway, let's move along, since, like I said, not a lot of current stuff to really talk about. Let's get right into the meat of the matter here today. The game that we are here to talk about and relive, and in fact, I've been doing a lot of reliving of this game recently on those weekend shows with Twitch, which, again, is twitch.tv/BloodyBillVox. I actually don't think I said that before, so why did I say again? A little bit of a space cadet at times, my friends. Had a little bit of a stressful morning with work. It kind of rattled my brain a little bit. Shook my confidence for a minute, and turned out it wasn't even a mistake I made. It was a mistake an outside entity made in submitting something. But whatever. Let's get into the meat of the matter officially. WWE 2K14. I've been doing a lot of reliving of this one recently. I've been doing the 30 years of WrestleMania playback, and if you'd like to see those are available on YouTube. If you're watching here on YouTube, then you're already in the right place. Just look around for the 30 years of WrestleMania playlist. But if you're on Spotify, head on over to youtube.com/@BloodyBillVox and look for the 30 years of WrestleMania playlist, because I've been playing that quite a bit. Just did the Hulkamania Runs Wild portion, followed by the New Generation and the Attitude Era. There's still the Ruthless Aggression Era, and then the Universe Era to complete it out. That mode was 47 matches deep. We'll talk about it in a few minutes, but WWE 2K14 is this week's title, and it came out back in 2013 on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. And a fun note here, it was published by 2K Sports, but it was developed by Yuke's. And that might seem like an odd combination to folks, considering Yuke's tended to work with THQ. Well, that's because WWE 2K14, in my eyes anyway, is the final THQ game ever produced for WWE, because in the middle of production for this game, THQ entered their bankruptcy proceedings, and that's how 2K Sports picked up this license. So a lot of the front end work, as far as I understand it, had already been done by THQ and the folks at Ukes. So 2K was kind of what's the best comparison I can give here? Kind of like when with shipping services here in the United States, sometimes it will start with shipper A, and then the United States Postal Service will grab it for the final leg. Like, which one I've seen that happen with? I think UPS. They have like a final mile service where if it's shipped a certain way, the United States Postal Service, USPS, will be the one that does the final delivery. So that's kind of how I looked at 2K when it came to being behind WWE 2K14. And it becomes very apparent the following year with WWE 2K15, which was the first time that 2K was solely in control of the game. And looking back on that one, and I'm sure it'll get its own episode someday, it was not very well received. It had a lot of pros, but it had a lot of cons. The showcase mode, I'm a mark for the showcase mode, so you're going to get me anytime with historical content. But it had its issues. The series got off to a rough start under 2K's hands in the eyes of a lot of gamers. But in terms of the lineage, though, this is a 2K game, so I guess we got to give some credit to 2K for ensuring that this game came out without major problems. It was very well received by the gaming community. Pulled 3 ratings, as I did last week, and I'm going to start doing that each and every time. A minimum of 3, because sometimes they're a little tough to track, but I think I found a site that's good for tracking who gave what reviews from reputable places. So in this case, we've got GameSpot, Game Informer, and IGN. GameSpot gave it a 6 out of 10, and I'll explain why their rating was what it was in a moment, because when I saw that, I was like, wow, that seems pretty low. Just 30 years of WrestleMania alone should get the game at least a 7. But anyway, Game Informer gave it an 8 out of 10, and IGN gave it an 8.7 out of 10. Interesting choice of score there, 8.7. I think the 8 out of 10, maybe even 8.5 is pretty fair. So, I mean, I guess IGN and Game Informer's ratings were both relatively fair in this case. GameSpot was mad at it because of the gameplay. They felt that it was kind of underwhelming, and that when there were multiple men in the ring or characters, because you could do multi-lady matches too, when there were multiples in the ring, that it just didn't play well and that sort of thing. And I suppose I could kind of see that, but I felt that the 6 out of 10 rating was really unfair to the game, considering how much it really truly did right. Like, this week's notes are very stupidly extensive because they did so much to try and deliver things in the eyes of the players, both who appreciate the modern product at the time, and then also who appreciate the retro product. This game did so much and has so many great modes to it. For me, WWE 2K14 is again, I've never made this list, and who knows how many times I've said it like this, but it's a definite top 5. Might even be 1 or 2. I know I've never said that about a game. I say maybe top 3. This I think would be 1 or 2. If I were to weigh out all of my favorite wrestling games. I should do one of those tier lists sometimes, but I don't even understand what those lists are. Like, I imagine that it's level based, obviously tiers, but like I don't even know anything about it. I can't even make a reference. There you go. Like S tier or something. I don't know. Like, I can't even make a proper reference to it. But the 6 out of 10 I just felt was really unfair. So poo-poo on you, GameSpot. Poo-poo on you. 30 years of, not 30 years of WrestleMania. I was going a little too far down my notes here. When I was talking about just a few minutes ago or moments ago, how much the 2K and THQ did with this game, something that I thought was really fun, and it continued for a few years, was, and I might be wrong on this, but this was the first time where there was a special collector's edition released related to a WWE game. Like, I think you might have been able to find like Steelbook or something goofy like that. But this version of the WWE games installment had a collector's edition featuring The Undertaker, and it was like the coolest thing for me as an Undertaker fan. And I looked it up before recording this, and I forgot a lot of the stuff that came inside, outside of the autograph, because you got a little, it's like a 3x5 card of The Undertaker in his WrestleMania 29 attire, I believe it was. And it's autographed by The Undertaker, like legitimately autographed, not some like press deal. Like they sat down with The Undertaker and he recorded, autographed these. But you got the game came inside of a coffin shaped tin that had The Undertaker symbol on the front. It was all black, purple symbol. And then inside, you had the autograph. You had a code for the American Badass Undertaker character. There was a Undertaker themed controller skin, and if I do recall, on my original PlayStation 3 that I sold to my buddy Ricky, once I had a PS4, I'm pretty sure I applied that skin, and I had never been a skins guy when it comes to my controllers or my consoles. I've never been that dude to skin them, change the plates, nothing. I know a lot of people do. Something about it makes me nervous. And then I always think about the potential of like, what if things ever go really, truly crappy and you got to sell all your crap? People generally like stuff the way that they come out of the box, not with your skins and stuff on it. So I just kind of tend to stay away from it. But in the case of this Undertaker controller skin, I definitely put that business on my PlayStation 3 controller, and it was nice. It was definitely nice. And then the last thing that came in the box was disc 1 of The Undertaker, The Streak DVD Blu-ray release. I believe it was a Blu-ray disc. I can't recall, and it didn't say in the listing that I grabbed. But there was a release from WWE Home Video at one point in time that featured all of The Undertaker Streak matches. It was a fun little set, if you didn't want to own all the WrestleManias, but you like The Undertaker. It was a nice way to have all the Streak matches in one place, one place, one time kind of deal without having to own, I think that set covered the first 19, maybe. It might have covered all the way through to 21. I can't remember. But either way, you got the first disc, like a tease. I thought that was weird, though, because it's not going to entice me to go buy the set. I have one disc now. Like, why would I go buy the whole thing? I can't buy the second disc. What they should have done is they should have offered a little promo and said, hey, if you bought WWE 2K14's collector's edition and you got that first disc of the Streak, use promo code, Taker 2K14 when adding the Streak to your cart, and we will only send you the second disc, and it will be half price. I don't know. Something they could have done. WWE 2K14 ended up being the last time that I ever went to a midnight release for a video game. I'll go into more of the story of that, but I in my format here, because I keep a format now. I gotta keep myself on track. Hello there, Bluetooth speaker that I forgot to turn off before I started recording. Well, hot diggity damn. So that was my Bluetooth speaker letting us all know that it was power off, if that picked up. I don't know if it did because I was talking while it was going on, but it might have. Who knows? And I won't listen to it back because I'm quite confident in my ability to read the wavelengths when I do the editing on this show, that everything's all right. But yeah, I was starting almost in a way it's good because I might have gone into the midnight release stories. But let's talk about the features. The features of WWE 2K14. So again, SmackDown Hotel is my source for a lot of this information. In fact, they were the most robust. So other than the ratings, everything here, note-wise, comes from them. In fact, I just did a lot of copying and pasting for going through all the various features. So let's rock and roll, buddies. I'm going to read it right from SmackDown Hotel because that's the best way to do it. Because I could stammer over it and stuff, or I could just read it right from the description. So here we go. WWE 2K14 is a wrestling video game developed in collaboration between Yuke's and Visual Concepts and published by 2K Sports for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 consoles. It is the 15th game in the WWE game series and the first under the brand 2K. It is the successor to WWE 13 and was succeeded by WWE 2K15 in 2014. It is the first WWE game published by 2K Sports since Take-Two Interactive gained the license from THQ in a bankruptcy filing. THQ Sports lineup of premier... Oh, blah, 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 blah. Oh, well, no, I guess this is kind of worth it. 2K Sports lineup of premier simulation titles expands the company's first release in the flagship WWE game franchise, WWE 2K14, the most electrifying, authentic, and comprehensive WWE video game experience to date. Counting all of the DLC, the game features 110 playable characters. Now, I'm not going to sit here and read through all of the playable characters, but just to give you a kind of a capsule of the era of some of the performers we had at the time, some of the roster includes Alberto Del Rio, Antonio Cesaro, Brock Lesnar, Chris Jericho, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, Damian Sandow, Daniel Bryan, let's see, Dean Ambrose, The Great Khali, Jinder Mahal, John Cena, Mark Henry, let's see, who else is a capsule of the time? Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Ryback. I know I jumped back a letter there, but there's your capsule, Ryback. The Divas roster was painfully small in this one here. In terms of out of the box females you could play with, we had 7. AJ Lee, Oksana, Caitlyn, Layla, Lita, Natalia, and Stephanie McMahon. And then we added Brie Bella, Nikki Bella, and I thought there was one other that we added via DLC. I really could have sworn we added another one via DLC. Oh, Summer Rae. So we added 3 more via DLC. I really thought we added a 4th. Did I miss a name here? Let me go through that list one more time. We got Brie Bella. We called her out. Did I miss a female somewhere else that's in the game? Maybe I missed one somewhere else. Hold up. No, I definitely didn't miss it in the DLC. It's the Bellas and Summer Rae. Miss Elizabeth doesn't... you might count Miss Elizabeth even though she's a non-playable character. Maybe that's how we got to 11. Yeah, I think that's how I got to 11. Was counting Miss Elizabeth, who's a non-playable character, but nonetheless, she is still present in the game. But yeah, a very robust roster. Some of the characters are repeats of others, like, retro versions of the Big Show, Brock Lesnar, and Chris Jericho, as part of the 30 years of WrestleMania mode. A couple of others, we got retros of John Cena, Kane, The Rock, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, The Undertaker. All sorts of fun retros. The Undertaker is the purple Undertaker, for those of you out there wondering which retro Undertaker we had. The DLC was kind of fun. I remember the NWO pack specifically because it was wild to see. We had Kurt Hennig in his NWO gear, the Giant, Kevin Nash, Randy Savage, Scott Hall, and Scott Steiner, We had 6 also. Virgil was DLC. Ravishing Rick Rude was DLC. Something I liked about that in particular is they actually used the proper theme song for Rick Rude in this one. I think it's one of the only times that they actually used the right theme song for him, and I don't know that I've ever seen it done since. The major mode behind WWE 2K14 that was the major selling point. It's the first one listed in the game modes outside of, I'd say the other thing that was a major selling point is it marked the return of the Ultimate Warrior to the WWE games, if I do recall. I'm going to research that right now as I'm talking about other stuff, but I'm pretty sure 2K14 was the return for the Ultimate Warrior. There we go. We'll do a little Google search, but while I let that load, 30 years of WrestleMania was the big selling point, and there it is. It loaded. The Ultimate Warrior was making his return to WWE games. The last time he was supposed to be in the games was, I believe, SmackDown, Shut Your Mouth, or Here Comes the Pain, but he sued his way out of that game and into Showdown Legends of Wrestling, which was last week's episode. So the Ultimate Warrior being a pre-order bonus in a WWE game was a major selling point, but 30 years of WrestleMania was also the major selling point because it bridged the gap between retro fans and current fans. The matches and the screenshots and the characters and everything were rolled out progressively over time. It was a great campaign by 2K Sports to reveal what matches were going to be played and relived. And a note that I had written down that I specifically wanted to address was if you go back and look at the 30 years of WrestleMania gameplay, or specifically the cutscenes, I would want 2K Sports or 2K to take a look back at what they did, right? In this one specifically, and replicate it in their current offerings. Because if you played WWE 2K23 this year, you probably played the John Cena Showcase. And if you played that, you noticed a lot of the archival footage was edited to high hell. Everything from fan signs, fan shirts, commentary, the whole 9 yards. It was a mess, in my opinion. It really brought down the quality of the showcase mode because all of a sudden we're muting Taz, who commentated a lot of Cena's early stuff. We're blurring out shirts because they don't fit with what we're currently pushing. We're blurring out signs. We're muting stuff. We're putting random music over the top. It was a mess. But here in the WWE 2K14 presentation for 30 years of WrestleMania, and I think this is a feature that is one of the reasons that it's so well looked at all this time later, 10 years later almost, since this game came out. It'll be the 10-year anniversary in a couple of months, were these cutscenes where they took these actual WrestleMania moments, like Andre the Giant throwing out the money at WrestleMania 1, or Hogan and Andre, the finish to their match, or the elbow drop with Randy Savage. They took these actual moments and they recreated them in the game. They animated these moments instead of using archival footage, which is great for content creation, by the way, because it minimizes your copyright risk. Outside of those wonderful video packages they put in advance of some of the matches in this mode. But what they did is they animated those moments, and in this game, Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler do the commentary for everything. Now, we know Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler were not the commentators for every single WrestleMania match that was presented here. So they do the commentary on all this early stuff. So my advice to 2K would be for them to look back at this game and be inspired by it, because then they could take whoever the next showcase is going to be. Let's say the next showcase is Edge, for example. We could take those cutscenes from his career and animate them. And maybe we have Michael Cole and Corey Graves doing the commentary on some of Edge's classic moments. But in my book, it didn't take away from the enjoyment of 30 years of WrestleMania whatsoever. It was a marvelous experience put together to capture at that point the first 30 years of WrestleMania, because obviously coming out in October of 2013, this game was being released ahead of the 30th WrestleMania, but what a way to celebrate. So that would be my advice, though. 2K, definitely go back and look at this because this was a masterpiece. 30 years of WrestleMania was a masterpiece. And again, from SmackDownHotel.com, I'm going to go ahead and read their description because we already talked about the various mode titles, but I'm going to pick it up here midway point just to kind of give you an idea of how things were laid out in this one. So it says, unique presentation elements transport players through different eras, including authentically recreated arenas, WWE superstar entrances and ring attires, as well as era-specific graphics, screen filters, and other presentation elements. In addition, extensive WWE-produced video packages and in-game cinematic cutscenes set the stage and provide detailed background information on key matches. And of course, it talks about how it authentically replicates match moments by completing the objectives, and then that's how you unlock legends and arenas and everything of that sort. Everything it said in that first paragraph, though, was 100% accurate. These authentically recreated arenas, now granted, they reused a couple of dome templates and stuff, but in general, they recreated everything beautifully. I think one of my favorites was the Trump Plaza recreations, because they got the whole stairwell look and all that stuff going pretty well. And they did a great job. WrestleMania 9's another good one, but I mean, they had to replicate 29 different WrestleMania arenas in this, so expect a little bit of replication. But the filters, the graphics, everything was on point. Obviously, they had to change stuff from WWF to WWE, so it was definitely weird to see stuff from the 80s and the early 90s that traditionally had that old block logo on it, seeing it with the WWE block logo, which still is bonkers to me. Like, I have a WWE Winged Eagle title belt in my house, and I'm like, that's the belt I grew up on, but it's not. But yeah, 30 years of WrestleMania really was a knock out of the park. It was bonkers, man. Like, as I'm reliving it now, I've replayed, as I record this episode, Hulkamania Runs Wild, the New Generation, and the Attitude Era, and it's been a blast. Like, I've had an absolute blast playing it, and it's going to be a little bit before I can sit down and play it again, which is a little bit of a bummer. But, what are you going to do? It might be until like next weekend before I can really do it again, unless I can sneak something in ahead of time. But let's move on with the features of this game. There was a new navigation system. Basically, the running, the walking, the dragging, everything was kind of formulated to try and give it more of a lifelike movement versus, I guess, maybe arcade style, which we've been kind of used to. And then they also sped up the gameplay. And I definitely noticed the differences in this one, because you can definitely run a little bit faster out of the gate compared to other games. And like even not too long ago, I was doing the Road to WrestleManias in SmackDown versus Raw 2011, and that game is clunky in a lot of respects. As good as it was, it was very clunky in a lot of respects also. So they definitely made a lot of improvements to things. And then as I'm looking through my notes here, we had animation gestures added, like adjusting wristbands and things of that sort. So, this was the title that really began the movement towards a more lifelike offering out of these games versus the arcade simulation. And of course, 2K is known for their simulation games. Obviously, NBA 2K being, I think, their other most popular series, and I'm sure they've got some others, but I'm not a in-tune gamer for the most part. But, looking just alone at NBA 2K and the level of commitment and detail and everything they put into that game, it was no surprise that they started doing that with WWE games. Although I wish that they would put the same level of detail and care into WWE games they put into the NBA games, because last year, because they're getting ready for 2K24 to come out, so NBA 2K23 had the Jordan Challenge, which was featured in I believe 2K11 or 2K12. I don't know. I bought it. It's in my cupboard, my video game cupboard. But playing this, looking at some of the stadiums, listening to the commentary, the music, everything, the graphics, they just nailed it all perfectly. And I feel like they don't put that same sort of detail into stuff. So moving on from the navigation, though, this game was touted as having the best creation suite ever. Now, I didn't get too deep into creating characters for a number of years, and this was one of those years. So I can't say that I have much of a viewpoint or a feeling. I've never really been a big creator wrestler guy anyway. A bit of a confession for a moment here during this episode. I've never been big into creating. I don't view myself as an overly creative person. I can create myself in games, but when it comes down to like trying to replicate my favorite wrestlers and things of that sort, I just don't think I have the skills to even put a finished product out. So I really never have. So you probably won't see me talking a ton about created characters. So there was a lot of stuff here. I mean, I will say that I use the Create an Arena was a fun template for me. And it's been so long that I don't even remember the mode. Like next time I turn it on, I'm gonna have to take a trek in there and see what the mode looks like again, because it's been a while. Because it's here are the notes. It says, in addition to the custom arenas from WWE 13, there were 11 new custom arenas. We have WrestleManias 9, 10, 24, 28, 29, No Mercy 2005, SummerSlam 2008, Survivor Series 2008 through 2011, the old Universal set used for Raw, SmackDown, ECW, etc., ECW 2012, and the WWE House Show Arena. It says new designs and venue types have been added. There's a total of 8 venue sizes, like the Indie Arena, Tribute to the Troops, Nighttime Outdoor Arena, and Football Stadium. We could put vintage effects, which were 1980s, 1990s, and late 1990s, and then we could have 3 different types of crowds. Within the Creation Suite, we obviously we had the Create a Wrestler, we had Create an Entrance, and then we also we still had Story Designer this time. We could still do custom moves and custom logos. At that point in time, and I believe both of these have made returns, Highlight Reel and Custom Titantrons had been removed as a function. So that was kind of, I guess, a little bit of a bummer. And then apparently you could upload your screenshots. I didn't even know you could do screenshots in the PlayStation 3, or maybe I did know it and I just forgot. Forget these things. Universe mode was pretty expansive in this one. I remember having fun with the universe mode, but I mean, admittedly, 30 years of WrestleMania is where I'll always gush about this game. Well, I'll gush about this game, but I will also gush about the 30 years of WrestleMania mode. But as part of that mode, I will also gush about the streak mode and defend the streak, because both of those modes were a load of fun to play. And I think if you defeat 12 is the number. Is it 12 or 21? I don't know. You have to beat a certain number of people, and you can unlock defend the streak as a standalone mode, and it's called Slobber Knocker mode. I believe that's pretty much a return from an old SmackDown game. Yes, it's non-stop Slobber Knocker style contest, and I remember the Slobber Knocker being in one of the old SmackDown games. If you remember which one it is, throw it down in the comments of either platform that you might be listening on. But streak mode was fun. I remember the beat the streak or defeat the streak being insane, like super duper taker, right? I first was trying to do it with people that he beat at WrestleMania. Then I was trying to do it with anybody. Eventually, I did it with Big Daddy Cool Diesel. And I believe there was a function of the match where it's like a no DQ match. Like, it's anything goes in these matches, I do believe. But in order to defeat The Undertaker, I had to power bomb him after lengthy beatings and escapings and everything else. I had to jackknife power bomb him 6 different times on the floor. So I had to keep getting my finishers up and all that, but I did the 6 in relatively quick fashion, and that was finally what was enough to defeat The Undertaker in the defeat the streak mode. I love the challenge of it, though, because it mimicked reality. At the time, The Undertaker beating him at WrestleMania was an insurmountable task. Of course, we were just months away at the time of this game's release from The Undertaker suffering his first loss at WrestleMania at the hands of Brock Lesnar during WrestleMania 30. But at the time of this game's release, this was not something that had ever been done. Nobody had ever beaten The Undertaker at WrestleMania. So, of course, it would be stupidly hard to beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. And then, of course, defending the streak was also fun because it's a never-ending gauntlet match where you just play as The Undertaker. It's tough, but it's not. Like, the one thing that I like and dislike at the same time about that mode is the longer you go, your body starts to wear down on you. So even if you're housing MFers left and right and just beating everybody up, at the end of the day, your torso is going to start to weaken. Your arms are going to start to weaken. Whatever you're using to beat up your opponents, they start to weaken. So that one was fun. When you won, you could upload a high score to the online servers at the time, which was neat. You could compare your score to other people. I will never forget the first loss that I suffered in that mode. So it was my first play, obviously. First time playing it, it was late at night. I was sitting on my couch. I remember it was this brown kind of microfiber top couch. And it's late at night. Shortly after getting the game, I'm sitting down. Might even be the official day of release, but I got to work the next day. And I'm playing, and I'm getting tired. I was already tired before I started playing. This is a big mistake I make sometimes with games. I'll sit down when I'm already tired, and then I start passing out while I'm playing. Like lately, it's been with some Grand Theft Auto stuff. I'll be falling asleep while I'm driving. Next, I wake up to the crashing sounds. Because, you're not in deep sleep. You're just nodding off. And then crash. Oh, my God, I'm awake. So I'm playing this defeat the streak or defend the streak with The Undertaker. I'm going. And then I fall asleep. I don't remember what I was doing when I fell asleep. Obviously, I had beaten somebody, but my final opponent was Jinder Mahal. And when I woke up, I realized that I had been hindered by Jinder. And then I promptly put him into a singles match and beat the crap out of him as payback because I'm like, dude, I was sleeping. How are you going to do that to me? I was sleeping. But the 30 years of WrestleMania mode is really what goes and sells this thing. moving along from that mode, we also had tournaments in here as well. We had King of the Ring tournament, we had Gold Rush tournament, we had tag team tournaments, we had custom tournaments where you could do like a no DQ type stuff. Damage retention was added to the tournament format, which I'm a big fan of, because in a single night tournament, you're not going to just magically be 100% again for your next match. So if you're simulating in your game, a lot of people do that, simulating for a one night tournament, you want your characters to start wearing down throughout the rounds, because if they've wrestled 3 times in one night, yeah, they should be tired. Or you can turn that option off, which you could do here, and you could simulate the fact, or simulate the idea that maybe this tournament takes place over a few different weeks, in which case people would, in theory, be at 100% when they go into their next matches. The last feature that I have to cover here is the plethora of arenas in this one. My goodness, I'm not going to read every WrestleMania for number. I'll just tell you that WrestleManias 1 through 29 are represented in this game. But also for the era, I'll say for the era because I'm not sure exactly what stage it was, but we had Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, Main Event, Superstars, NXT. This is, we got some 2012 stages coming in. Over the Limit, No Way Out, Money in the Bank, SummerSlam, Night of Champions, Hell in a Cell, Survivor Series, TLC. Then we've got some 2013 stages coming in, Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, Extreme Rules, and then a WrestleMania 30 custom stage that was made by 2K with all the WrestleMania logos and stuff, because they'd already released the logos for WrestleMania 30, so it was easy for 2K to kind of speculate on what the game was going to, or excuse me, what the arena might look like to some degree. They called it the WrestleMania Moment Arena in the game. As I had said at the start of the episode and started telling the story, but then my Bluetooth speaker was like, power off, don't talk about this story yet, because it's the story you're supposed to kind of end your episode on after you talked about everything. WWE 2K14 was the last time that I ever attended a midnight release for a video game. And up to that point, I only ever did it for video games. I didn't do it for other stuff, but it was always fun to go to those midnight releases. I would go to the GameStop on a main road here in my city, because we got 2 different GameStops. One's at the mall, and then one's on a main road. So I'd go to the one on the main road because that was closer to my house, and I liked the staff there better at the time. Now, every GameStop employee under the sun is miserable because they get treated like trash, but that's probably a different topic for a different podcast. This midnight release, like I said, it was the last one that I ever went to. And what I used to do annually for WWE games, and I stopped doing the latter part of this a few years later, but what I used to do was annually I would take the release day off of work. Didn't matter what was going on. I would take, as soon as I knew the release date of the game, I would make note of it, and then once we were about 3 to 4 weeks out, I'd put in that request, and never had any problems taking it off. But I always said that if you deny the request, I'll be sick that day. Like it's non-negotiable. Call me a video game nerd if you want, but it was non-negotiable. So I went to the midnight release, and I had taken the day off of work, and so I got it home, got it installed, and I didn't stay up too late initially playing it because I had worked that day, and I stayed up till midnight and all that other fun stuff. But I didn't sleep long because it was waiting to play the 30 years of WrestleMania mode was like a kid waiting for Christmas morning. Prior to this, we had Legends of WrestleMania. And in a previous episode, I can't remember which one I mentioned this in, but I said that it was the Showdown episode. I said that I've always had a dream of a retro game being produced, but with modern flair to it. So, give me the roster of the 80s and the 90s. And I guess this is more of like a WWE. It was a WWE dream because that's what I grew up on. So you'll have to, bear with me on some of these references. But, give me some of the guys out of the 80s and the 90s and, give me some of those WrestleManias, but also give me some SummerSlams and Survivor Series stages, maybe Superstars of Wrestling or just called Superstars, and then All-American Wrestling or Wrestling Challenge, or maybe we mimic the old regional shows that we used to do on Nesson and the MSG network, mimic the Boston Garden and Madison Square Garden or the Spectrum, whatever. I kind of wanted to see a game that was stuck in an era but put out in a modern era. Stuck in the 80s, but it was put out in 2013. Something to appeal to the older wrestling fan at the time, especially with the WWE network or WWE On Demand being prevalent in cable systems. I always thought it was a great idea. So prior to 2K14, we had Legends of WrestleMania. And it was a bit of a letdown. Like, it was fun. Like, I can still play it and have a lot of fun, but for what I was wanting and hoping for, it was a few steps over Legends of Wrestling. Like, the controls obviously were way better. We had the import option to bring in the SmackDown versus Raw roster from that particular year. I think it was 2009. And it did a good job at reliving a lot of WrestleMania stuff. And there will be an episode delving into that game at some point in time as well. So when 30 Years of WrestleMania got announced, I was, like I said, a kid on Christmas morning type of feeling. I just wanted to play it and experience it so much because so many of my core memories of wrestling are rooted in the era between my birth, because I've watched all of it, 1985 through like 1999, 2000, even 2001. After that, things kind of trail off. But those early WrestleManias, those WrestleManias were like comfort WrestleManias to me in some ways, because I remember renting WrestleMania 3 from a little hole-in-the-wall video store when I would stay with the family friend who went on to become my sister's godfather. I'd stay at his place on weekends, and we would rent videos from this little hole-in-the-wall, and I always picked WrestleMania 3 and Short Circuit for the movie. And I just have that memory. Same thing with WrestleMania 4. I remember renting that from a random video place when I went with my mother's boyfriend at the time on a painting job. He was paying me to work, and ultimately my work that day consisted of eating wings and watching WrestleMania 4. I was like 7. I made good money for it too. I was really good at it. WrestleMania 6 is another one that I have memories of. I used to rent that on the rainy day. There was a little tiny, like, family-owned video store at the beach that we stayed at every summer, and I would rent WrestleMania 8, WrestleMania 6. And then WrestleMania 8, I'll never forget the imagery of being sick. Sick in my living room, 5:30 in the morning. I probably was like, 12, 13 years old, but watching WrestleMania 8 on a VHS that my neighbor had recorded. He let me borrow a stack of his videotapes. And I remember watching The Undertaker walk out of the Indianapolis Hoosier Dome, and the way the lighting was, and the way the camera angle was, and it's just something I associated with. It was something I was watching to just kind of forget that I was sick and make me feel better. So the point I was driving at is the 30 Years of WrestleMania was like comfort. It was like a comfort mode for me. So that's why I was so excited to play it, and I banged that mode out in about a day and a half. I was done with it in a day and a half. I didn't waste any time playing through it because I was hooked. Like I said, it was like reliving my childhood. It was like being comforted. The cinematics were great. The video packages were great. In my playthroughs on Twitch right now, I'm skipping the entrances, but even the entrances were great. They used so much accurate music. They used some music that wasn't accurate, but for the most part, everything was accurate. But those cutscenes, man, those cutscenes were wonderful. And like I said earlier in this episode, if I had any sort of recommendation to the folks at 2K, it would be to go back to this game. When you're getting ready to work on your next showcase, or if you're already working on your next showcase, I hope that you've had this game nearby, because this is how you do the showcase mode. 110%. This is how you do the showcase mode, and this is how I would recommend that they do them in the future. Get your current commentators to do the commentary. Bring the raw audio in from the videotape. That's what they did in this game with the raw audio from the videotape. No commentary from the original commentators. Bring in the current commentary guys that you've got lined up and animate those segments. Instead of worrying about censoring logos and t-shirts and signs and commentators because you don't want to pay out royalties and all that jazz, blurring the referees' heads out. Like, it was so obnoxious in WWE 2K23. So if I leave any point in cement from this episode, because I can be very flexible in my viewpoints on things, when I make a point, if somebody gives me something else, hey, it's a little different over here, I'll be like, all right, I guess you're right. But in this one, I'll leave it right in. I'll put it in cement. 2K should be emulating the showcase style from WWE 2K14 if they are going to keep doing those spliced cinematic cuts. It was done way better in WWE 2K14. So my closing thoughts on this game before we wrap things up here is, I personally collect every wrestling game that I can collect because I like having physical copies of these games. But if you're a sporadic collector and you're looking for something retro to play from the WWE catalog, I highly, highly, highly recommend picking up WWE 2K14, whether it's on your PlayStation 3 or your Xbox 360. To me, it's among the greatest WWE games ever released. For me personally, it might be my number 1 or number 2 of my wrestling games. And I'm putting it up there like tier level wise with our No Mercies, our Revenges, and that sort of stuff. And I'm sure that'll ruffle some feathers to put it on those tiers. But that is how well I feel this game was executed. So if you're a sporadic collector and you don't have this in your collection, 110% go out and pick yourself up a copy. And if you'd like to see more of the 30 Years of WrestleMania mode, again, if you're here on YouTube, just go ahead and look for the 30 Years of WrestleMania playlist. And if you're not on YouTube, head on over to youtube.com/@BloodyBillBox, and you can see the 30 Years of WrestleMania gameplay. Watch mine. Don't watch others. Watch mine. Give me the hits. Come on. Help me out here. Hit the subscribe button, too, while you're there, and notifications, so you never miss another future posting of this show or anything else on my YouTube channel. And if you want to keep up with me on social media, you can do so on a variety of platforms at BloodyBillVox. The notable ones are Twitter. I'm going to keep calling it Twitter. We all know that they call it X, but it's Twitter. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Ko-fi, Teespring. Yeah, just if you're on a platform, if you want to know I'm there, put in Bloody Bill Vox. If you see my goofy face or a bloody logo, you probably found me. And if you don't see those, then chances are I'm not there. So on that note, my friends, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up this week here on Dropkicks and Joysticks. It has been a wonderful, wonderful ride taking a look back at WWE 2K14. But it's kind of funny that just a moment ago that I said that I put WWE 2K14 up there in the tier level with the N64 games, because coming up on next week's episode, we're going to take a look back at our first Nintendo 64 title. It's going to be WCW NWO Revenge. WCW NWO Revenge was the first Nintendo 64 game that I had ever. Never mind wrestling title for the console. It was my first Nintendo 64 game ever. And I got a lot of memories with that, including getting super duper pissed off that you could beat up on the ladies. But we'll share those stories next week when we cover WCW NWO Revenge from the Nintendo 64. But until then, I'd like to thank you for tuning in yet again for another episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks. My name is Bloody Bill Vox. Again, you can find me on all the different social media platforms that you can think of. Maybe not all of them that you can think of, but, a good number of them. Again, if you're on one, you want to know I'm there, just search at Bloody Bill Vox, and if I'm there, I'm there, and if I'm not, chances are I won't be ever. But until next week, my friends, stay safe out there, stay happy out there, have a bunch of fun out there, stay hydrated, too, and, mind your own business, and, be nice to people. It's cool. And I will see you next week, next Monday, 12 p.m. Eastern, right here for another new episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks, where we talk about WCW NWO Revenge.